Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. This is Premier League predictions Game Week 6. In this video, I'm going to analyze the upcoming Premier League fixtures and basically give my guesses about what I think is going to happen. And before I get into that, let's take a look at what happened last week. So I asked you guys if you thought that it made sense for me to get extra points, since otherwise it's going to be impossible going up against a whole chat of you. And you guys agreed in the comments. So for anything that I'm getting right, I'm getting double the points that you get. You get 3, I'll get 6. I think that kind of evens it out a little bit to give me some fighting chance of going up against you guys. So last weekend I got 2 scores correct, but I was really excited because I got the Man City Arsenal score right, and I feel like that one should be extra points, but I haven't thrown anything in there. Like, that was just one of my finer moments in this game. Don't know if I'm going to ever beat that one. And then there were 5 games that I got the correct win, draw, loss, but I just didn't get the score right. And then there was one that I had the same goal difference. So did pretty well last week, and you guys in the comments absolutely killed it as well. You got 4 score predictions correct, and then you also had a lot of the win, draw, losses correct as well, so you've gotten points for that. And I wanted to give a shout out to Darren, Siobhan, and Jamie, who got a couple of those score predictions right for you guys to get you guys points. So how are we looking? This week I got a total of 18 points. You guys got 17 points, but I'm still really far behind, so I'm gonna have to do a lot better in this video if I have any chance of catching you guys. So let's get into these predictions. First up, Newcastle versus Man City. Newcastle come into this game off the back of their first defeat of the season, losing 3-1 to Fulham, which I definitely did not expect. Shar had the opportunity to equalize, but he fluffed his lines and couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. The big news for Man City is that Rodri is out for the rest of the season, and there's a lot of speculation about whether or not that's going to dampen their hopes of winning another consecutive Premier League title. And Pep Guardiola went and said that it's not unlike how they had Haaland out for 3 months last season, De Bruyne out for 5 months last season, but they were still able to go on and win the league. But interestingly enough, last season when Rodri did miss 9 games, Man City's win percentage dropped from 76% to 56%. which is just mind-boggling. So interested to see how this City side gets on. I think Pep is going to try not to let it affect the team too much, but time will tell if this has put a dampener into their hopes of getting yet another Premier League title. Standout players. So from Newcastle, I've gone for Harvey Barnes. He has 3 goals and 1 assist in his last 4 Premier League games. He just looks on fire. He looks on form. I think I might have said him last week as well, but sometimes, you know, when you're just like super impressed with a player, and well, we're going for Harvey Barnes. And then from Man City, I have to go with Erling Haaland this week, guys, because he's reached 10 goals in 5 Premier League games, which is the earliest that any player has reached double-digit figures from the start of the campaign. It's just bananas. This guy isn't human. If he scores 1 goal, we're like, it's just 1 goal. It's not a brace. Like, a brace has become his baseline. City have won 10 out of their last 12 games against Newcastle, and they've also scored in each of their last 31 games against Newcastle, which is the longest scoring streak that one team has against another team in the Premier League. So I'm predicting more of the same. I'm going to go for a 2-1 Man City win. Next up, Arsenal had an emphatic win midweek in the EFL Cup. After their 2-2 draw versus Man City, they would have been a bit disappointed after having held on up until the last minute of the game. Could have been really big in the title race, but Mikel Arteta did come out and say that he feels like something different with this group of players. The hunger that they have is unlike any other team that he's coached for Arsenal. They're hoping that they can go on and win the Premier League trophy this season. But if they want to do that, they really have to stomp out these types of like silly second yellow, red card situations. We saw it with Declan Rice, now we saw it with Leandro Trossard as well. So he's really going to have to make sure that his team are super aligned on that front. Leicester City are one of 6 teams still looking to get a win so far in the Premier League this season. They were able to book their spot to the next round of the Carabao Cup, but they had to take it to penalties, and Ward made 3 saves in order to see Leicester go to the next round. For Arsenal, I'm going with kind of maybe a bit of a differential pick, if you will. First standout player, I'm gonna go with Raheem Sterling. I'm keen to see how he plays for Arsenal. He got his first goal for the team midweek, and I'm curious to see if he's going to start after getting the goal. But also, he has a crazy record against Leicester. He scored a brace against them, both with Man City and with Chelsea. So that's kind of playing in the back of my mind if we're going to see something from him because of that crazy record that he has. And for Leicester City, I've gone for none other than Jamie Vardy. You know, those players that you just have such a soft spot for. Like that season when Leicester won the Premier League, like I just developed just the biggest affinity and appreciation for Jamie Vardy. Like he's such a good player, and I'm just really happy that he's still playing at this stage in his career. He's scored 2 goals in his last 5 games, and he's 8 goals away from the 200 mark for Leicester in all comps. But interestingly enough, he has a crazy record against Arsenal as well. He scored 11 goals in 16 games against them. Arsenal have won their last 5 Premier League games against Leicester City, and they're undefeated in their last 11 Premier League games. So I'm going to go for a big scoreline. I think that they're definitely going to want to make a statement after the 2-2 draw as well. So I'm going for a 4-1 Arsenal win. Brentford versus West Ham. Thomas Frank will be hoping that his side can return to winning ways after a 3-1 defeat to Spurs last weekend, and Wemo opened up the scoring after just 23 seconds, but then Solanke equalized soon after for them to go on to lose the game 3-1. Thomas Frank did mention that Brentford have been struggling with injuries this season. He didn't want to make excuses for this, but he said that they do have to try to find ways to dig deep and like remain competitive despite the amount of injuries that they do have at the moment. Lopetegui, on the other hand, has endured a tough start to the Premier League campaign with West Ham. Their latest result having seen them crash out of the EFL Cup, having lost 5-1 to Liverpool. And he said that he feels that his side deserved more than just 4 points in their opening 5 games, but it's up to them to be more clinical in front of goal. For standout players for Brentford, I'm going for Brian Mbeumo. He scored 4 out of 7 of Brentford's Premier League goals so far this season, and he's been involved in 13 goals in his last 14 Derby appearances, which is just insane. If anybody else has him in FPL like I do, I'm sure you'll be hoping that he gets a return in this game as well. And for West Ham, I've gone for Jared Bowen because he has scored more goals against Brentford than he has against any other side in his Premier League career at 7 goals. He also netted a hat-trick versus Brentford last season in their 4-2 win over them. So I'm having a really hard time predicting this one because I do feel like I can see it going either way. I do feel that Brentford are in better form going into this match. They've won 4 out of their last 5 home league games against West Ham, and they've also scored at least twice in all 6 of their Premier League meetings with them as well. So I could see this ending in a draw, but I think I'm going to edge it towards Brentford, and I'm going for a 2-1 Brentford win. Next up, we have Chelsea versus Brighton. I think this is going to be a fiery game because in the last 4 games we've seen 3 red cards, which I didn't realize. That's just insane. And going into this game, Enzo Maresca is going to have a bit of a benching headache on his hand because his 2 forwards are in great form. And Cuckoo scored a hat-trick in the EFL Cup midweek, which brings his tally to 6 goals in 9 games, but he's only made 1 Premier League start. And on the other hand, Nico Jackson has 6 goals in 10 games for the club. Maresca suggested that he wouldn't be against using both players. I would be interested to see a front 4 of Sancho on the left and Kunku as the 10, Jackson up front, and then Cole Palmer on the right, and then you could still bring off the bench Madueke, Neto, Joao Felix. Like, your bench is absolutely stacked if you do that. So curious to see what happens and how this front line lines up because both attackers are in really great form. Brighton are one of the teams that are still unbeaten in the Premier League so far this season. They're currently 1 point behind Chelsea in the league, and they have drawn their last 3 Premier League games in a row. Brighton had a fiery game against Forest, drawing 2-2 last weekend. They were a bit disappointed, I feel, not to get the win after the slew of opportunities that they had. For Chelsea, for players to look out for, I'm going for Nico Jackson. This is somebody that I'm thinking about bringing into my FPL team as well. So if you play FPL, let me know what you're thinking about doing with him. Do you own him? I want to know. I want the confirmation bias. But he has 4 goals and 2 assists in his last 5 Premier League games. I'm so happy for him because I've literally always said to give him time. He has 4 goals and 2 assists in his last 5 Premier League games. And he's currently been involved in 13 goals in 13 Premier League games. He's just on fire. So long may it continue. And from Brighton, I've gone for Danny Welbeck, yet another player that I have in my fantasy team. There's no bias here. He scored 3 goals and 1 assist, including a screamer last weekend, his first free kick that he's ever scored. But on top of that, he just loves scoring against Chelsea. He has 3 goals in 4 appearances versus them. Chelsea have failed to win their first 2 Premier League home games at Stamford Bridge, but only twice before have they failed to win their first 3. Brighton are one of only 4 undefeated teams currently left in the Premier League, so I do think that this is going to be a tough game. But at the end of the day, I just feel like Chelsea are going into this with slightly better form, but this has been pretty firecracker of a match in recent years, so anything can happen and both teams are going to have to kind of keep their heads on. I'm gonna go for a 2-1 Chelsea win. Everton versus Crystal Palace. Everton got their first point of the season last weekend versus Leicester City, so that should give them a bit of a morale boost. Like Everton, Crystal Palace also have yet to get a win so far this season, but they do have 3 draws in a row, and they were able to hold Man United to a 0-0 draw last weekend, which is a big result for them. For standout players for Everton, I've gone for Dwight McNeil, who has 2 goals and 2 assists in all comps for Everton this season. And for Crystal Palace, I've gone for Eze, who has 2 goals and 3 assists in all comps for them this season. Everton are undefeated in their last 10 home matches against Crystal Palace, but Crystal Palace go into this having had 3 draws, so I don't know which way this is going to go, but I'm going to predict a 1-1 draw. Nottingham Forest versus Fulham. So going into this match, Morgan Gibbs-White will miss it after a second yellow that he got versus Brighton last weekend. Forest have had a really strong start to their Premier League campaign. They're currently unbeaten in the league and they're sitting in 8th place. Fulham, on the other hand, are 1 point and 1 place behind Forest, sitting in 9th. They're coming off of a massive win versus Newcastle and will be looking to continue that momentum into this game. For standout players for Forest, I've gone for Chris Wood. He has 3 goals in his last 5 games, including a penalty that he took last weekend. He's also in the 85th percentile for shots on target. And then for Fulham, I've gone for Emile Smith-Rowe. He has 2 goals and 1 assist in his last 5 games. And he's in the 90th percentile for successful passes and pass accuracy. And since Forest are undefeated, I do think that this is going to be a tight one. I'm having a really hard time, but I'm going for a 2-2 draw. Wolves versus Liverpool. Wolves have had a horrid start to the Premier League so far this season and currently sit in last place but have the same stats as Everton in terms of goal difference, games won, all of that. Liverpool are in fine form in the Premier League, having won 4 of their 5 matches. Man City and Arsenal are widely considered the main title contenders, but I do feel like Liverpool could sneak under the radar, and even not so much under the radar because they have been playing really well. They're coming off of a massive win midweek in the EFL Cup, and they're going to be looking to continue that goal scoring momentum into this weekend. For a standout player for Wolves, I've gone for Matheus Cunha, who has 2 goals so far this season, but he's also in the 90th percentile for shots on target, and successful crosses. And for Liverpool, another player that I'm thinking about getting into my FPL team is Luis Diaz, who's been involved in 6 goals in his last 4 Premier League games for Liverpool, scoring 5 and assisting 1. Liverpool have won 14 of their last 15 matches against Wolves, and I can't see that stopping now. I'm going for a 3-0 Liverpool win. Ipswich Town versus Aston Villa. So Ipswich have found a bit of steadier ground, drawing their last 3 Premier League games, most notably against Brighton and Southampton, even though they still haven't won a Premier League game. Aston Villa are in crazy form so far this season with 5 wins in their last 5 games, and they're currently sitting 3rd in the Premier League. For players to look out for from Ipswich Town, I've gone for Jacob Greaves. Very strong aerially, and he's in the top percentile for duels won and aerial duels won. For Aston Villa, I'm sorry, I feel like I keep saying this, but it's just so insane what this guy's doing. John Duran, he's scored 4 goals in the league so far this season. He continued his scoring midweek in the EFL Cup as well, and I would just put bets on him to score again. Like, I just want to see how long he can continue scoring. It's just been insane. So I do think that Aston Villa win this game. I don't know if it's going to be like a really emphatic win or just a slight win. Like, that bit. I'm just not 100% sure. I've gone for a 1-2 win. I'm gonna stick by my 1-2, but I could perfectly see it being like a 1-3. Now we have one of the games of the weekend, Man United versus Spurs. So both of these teams are kind of similar in my mind in terms of the form that they've had, and you just don't really know what's going to happen, which makes this really difficult to predict. So Man United are coming off of 2 consecutive draws, one in the league and one in the Europa League. They've had some bright moments this season, but they've also had some shocking ones. I'm just never quite sure which Manchester United is going to show up. They do also have a couple of injuries, the most notable one being Luke Shaw, who's out with a calf injury and is expected back shortly, either before or after the international break in October. We're just not 100% sure. Tottenham, like I said, have also had a bit of an up and down season. They're currently sitting just 1 place above United in 10th, but they're level with them on points. However, after their 3-0 win in the Europa League, they now have 3 consecutive wins in all competitions. I'm really keen to see the battle between James Maddison and Manuel Ugarte, should Ugarte get the start, because Maddison is starting to show that scintillating form that he was in at the start of last season. From Man United, for players to look out for, I've gone for Matthijs de Ligt because he provides an attacking threat from set pieces. He scored his first goal for United with a header versus Southampton, and he was almost able to replicate that versus Crystal Palace as well. And for Spurs, I've gone for Dominic Solanke, so he scored and assisted in Spurs' midweek win, and it looks like he's finally starting to get into the form that we know that he's capable of after having a slow start to the season through injury. Like I said, it's been a similar story for both sides so far this season. Spurs actually have really good underlying stats. They rank 2nd in the Premier League for shots on target, and touches in the opposition's box, but they just haven't been able to translate that into points. I do feel like it is really hard to play at Old Trafford, but like I said, it's just so difficult to predict what either of these teams are going to do. Like, I could literally see it going either way. I feel like Spurs might be in slightly better form, but I don't know. So I'm going for a 2-2 draw. And last but not least, Bournemouth versus Southampton. So the results between these two sides have been pretty split the past couple of times that they've played each other, with both sides getting the better of one another. Bournemouth are currently sitting in 13th. They have 1 win in their last 5 games, and their last loss was handed to them by Liverpool after a 3-0 thrashing. Bournemouth haven't scored in their last 2 games and haven't kept a clean sheet in 7. Southampton, on the other hand, are currently sitting in 18th and are yet to get a win so far in the league this season. Southampton also haven't kept a clean sheet in 7 games, and they haven't found a win in their last 18 Premier League matches. For standout players for Bournemouth, I've gone for Antoine Semenyo. He's somebody else I have in my fantasy team. Last weekend I had him benched, and he had a goal ruled out, thankfully for me, but he has 2 goals and 1 assist so far this season in the Premier League. He's currently in the 100th percentile for shots and in the 90th percentile for expected goals and expected assists. And then for Southampton, I've gone for Cameron Archer, who has the most shots on target per match for Southampton at 1.8. This is another match that I feel like is going to be pretty tight, but I'm edging it slightly towards Bournemouth, so I'm going for a 1-0 Bournemouth win. So guys, those are my Premier League predictions for Game Week 6. Let me know what you made of them and what your predictions are in the comments down below. Don't forget to comment so that you help the chat win points in this little game that we have playing, and maybe you'll get a shout out for getting the right answer in this video as well. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like my content, if you like my video, drop it a like, sub to the channel, and don't forget to turn on those notifications so that you don't miss any content that's coming up. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, evening, whatever time you're watching this, and until next time, I'm out. Bye!